Great. So, are we live? Excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on this webinar that is talking about how your community can benefit from bicycle travel and tourism. This is Bill Nesper. I'm the executive director of the League of American Bicyclists, and we as a league are very excited to have our partners at CycleLifeHQ here to help your communities unlock the potential for getting more people on bikes in your communities and really building much stronger cycling infrastructure and bicycling culture. We are very fortunate to have two excellent presenters from CycleLifeHQ. Jeff Miller, who is the former president and CEO of the Alliance for Biking and Walking, a good friend of ours. He is now the owner of DC Cycling Concierge and is CycleLifeHQ's VP in North America. We're also joined by Charles Black, who's the CEO and co-founder of CycleLifeHQ. Thank them both profusely for all of their efforts to help advocacy organizations, community leaders, agency leaders to really unlock this potential. I know as part of our work with bicycle-friendly communities, we're seeing more and more of the transformative effect that bicycle travel and tourism have on local communities. So thank you so much for being with us, guys, and take it away from here.
All right, well, Bill, thank you. Thank you to everyone who has been able to join us today. Appreciate you finding time in your busy schedules to hear a little bit about how bicycle travel and tourism can benefit your community. And I'm just going to acknowledge up front that we've got some fantastic communities registered today. Wonderful to see some familiar names on here. And I know that there are already a number of communities who are doing some pretty cool things. So kudos and thanks to all of you. There'll be a few things here that you may already know, but hopefully there's a few things that we're able to share that are some new insights, some new tools, and so forth. I will just acknowledge up front that we have Charles joining us from Australia, and so he will be talking part of this, dealing with probably at least a 15 to 25 second delay. So just appreciate your patience as we grapple with technology wrapping around the globe and so forth. I also want to be sure to thank Bill and all of our folks at the League. I am actually going to try changing the slides here and make sure that that's working. So if you don't see a change to thanks to our partners, let me know right away. I think I was about my 8th or 9th slide last week before I realized it wasn't working. Bill, is it looking good on your end?
Sure is.
All right, thank you. So again, thanks to the League of American Bicyclists. We have also been working with Adventure Cycling Association, the International Mountain Bike Association. We've been working with a number of state and regional organizations, and we are currently reaching out to some of our other national partners as well. But the League, the Adventure Cycling Association, and IMBA have all just been fantastic, very receptive, and so we're really enjoying working on those partnerships and hopefully doing our part to help communities and our nation benefit from bicycle tourism and travel. So our purpose of the workshop today is really to talk about the best practices of bicycling destinations, to talk particularly about how the business community can capitalize on the opportunity, how to get more visitors to view and consider your community as a bicycle travel destination, and also talk a little bit about some innovative funding to develop local infrastructure, and we'll dive into some of that. So with bicycle tourism, a lot of folks do tend to think of what we see here, you know, a beautiful back road, folks wearing their Lycra and loaded up for a long haul. And as someone who has been fortunate enough to bike across this country and around the world, I absolutely have a very strong connection and affiliation and love of bicycle touring. But we are talking about bicycle tourism and travel. And so this is a much bigger pie that we want to be talking about. So we're being very inclusive here when we talk about bicycle travel and tourism. We're talking about sightseeing rides, road and mountain bike riding, trail riding, recreational riding, as well as the long distance touring, the backpacking, the bike packing and doing events and tours. We're also thinking about this not just as how we're promoting destinations globally, but we're also talking about the regional tourism angle of things. So big picture, big vision, any way we can get people visiting, whether they're enjoying a recreational ride within our own city or region, or they're crossing oceans to come and do a multi-week tour. These all fit within bicycle travel and tourism. So let's talk about a few of the common elements. Some of these you may already be familiar with. I mean, we obviously know how active transportation, active travel are taking off. We know that, that we live within an era where people appreciate authentic experiences and being where they are, having these place-based adventures, as well as those larger sort of natural heritage, you know, connecting with history and really being in the communities. You know, one of the things that I find as the DC Cycling Concierge is how much people really appreciate that, having a local authentic cyclist who is able to pedal with them around the city. And we want to highlight again the basic demographics that cycle, you know, travelers and tourists are a more affluent population, that they're high impact in all the good ways. They are spending more, they're eating a lot of local food, they are disproportionately benefiting locally owned businesses. You know, they're not spending as much money at the gas station, which is largely money that's being pumped out of state or out of country in most cases. I realize we may have a few folks here from Texas who might object to that, but largely we're talking about the local economy really benefiting. And because bicyclists are by and large appreciating where they are, they also tend to stay longer. They're also low impact in the negative ways, in that they're not causing as much traffic, traffic congestion, and or require parking. And then one other thing which may be new to a lot of you is that we know from our close partnership with Google that bicycling is, and search terms around bicycle travel and tourism are growing dramatically. Google reports a 42% year-over-year growth in search terms related to bicycle travel and tourism. And this is something that we absolutely see benefiting destinations. And a lot of this is not going to be new to most of you, but obviously that economic impact, that this is a sustainable form of development, and that it's something that can not only grow current businesses, but it can help create new businesses and create new jobs in both those existing and new businesses that come along. It's also something that benefits both rural and urban communities. So again, I know we have a range of folks from cities and some from small towns. This is something that can benefit everyone in between. We do see maybe a disproportionate impact in a positive way with small communities. I mean, we certainly are familiar with some of the wonderful stories of trail towns that have been revitalized because of trails like the Great Allegheny Passage, or bike routes like some of the adventure cycling routes, really making a big impact when you have a community with just a few hundred people. But obviously this is something that's also benefiting suburban communities and cities, any destination that really wants to focus on cultivating. I think one of the other things that I want to highlight too, I mean, I come from a 25-year career as a professional bicycle advocate. And I know that whether you're working for a city or an agency or a conventions and visitors bureau or even a nonprofit, you know, there's probably things that you are trying to do in your community to make it safer and better for everyone. And when you come to this with the additional angle of the economic impact that promoting bicycle travel and tourism can do, it's just another angle that you're able to do. It's more partnerships you can bring in. I mean, obviously advocates are often clamoring to try to get better infrastructure built, but when they're able to ally with hotel owners and local restaurant owners to also approach the city and say, this is something that we really want for you as if you work for a city, to be able to demonstrate and to show things that you're doing to help support local businesses. These are all great things for our communities, and so that's one of the things I love about bicycle travel and tourism is its broad sweep of doing positive things within communities. So when we talk about the bicycle industry in a lot of our circles, we're typically talking about what we should really label as the bicycle product industry. And in fact, the bicycle tourism and travel industry is much larger than bicycle products. And it makes sense when you think about it. You know, some of us may spend a little more than others, but you know, imagine the average bicycle someone may be spending $500 or even $1,000 on. It doesn't take very long. It doesn't take a whole lot of trips before they are spending more than that, many times more than that, on staying at hotels or inns, eating out, going to breweries, wineries, you name it. So it is pretty easy when you think about the lifetime of a bicycle and the amount of money that many people will spend enjoying that bicycle as a means to get to explore and experience destinations. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Charles for a few seconds. And Charles, I'm just changing to the challenge of bicycle travel and tourism slide.
Great, thanks Jeff, and welcome all. Because I'm from Australia, we are 15 to 25 seconds delayed, and don't take that in the wrong way. It's more the internet connection here, so if there's a little bit of a disconnect, apologies. So Jeff talked about, you know, the relative size of the bicycle travel and tourism industry, and I think to put that into perspective is, you know, latest count, there's anywhere from 440 to 500 different bicycle brands. In contrast, there's, you know, at least over 30,000 destinations globally that see themselves as a part of the bike travel and tourism industry. And you know what that means is that you've got 30,000 different groups who are really focusing on branding themselves and promoting themselves. But unlike the bicycle product industry, the industry hasn't been able to really consolidate and get sort of some critical mass. And that just makes sense, because when you've got 30,000, you know, destinations versus 400 odd product manufacturers, it's hard to get the resources and it's hard to get monies. So, you know, one of the key insights for destinations is just to understand that is the nature of the industry, that it is highly fragmented. And you know, that does pose some challenges. So if we move to the next slide, Jeff.
Sorry, I'm having a delay. I just changed it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So some of those challenges exist for you know, across destination and businesses. So for destinations, you know, how do I get the funds to, you know, invest in bicycle tourism and travel? Whereabouts do I start? You know, we're one of 30,000 destinations. Where do I start? What's my place in the world? How do I fund it in an ongoing sense? And businesses are similarly challenged. You know, it's really interesting that one of the largest, you know, cycle tourism businesses, you know, in the world, tour company, you know, provides, you know, about 200 people, you know, employment. And while that might sound a lot, if you compare it to a Trek or a Specialized, it's just a very, very small, you know, organisation. And what that means is, you know, oftentimes, particularly in local communities, you know, they have, you know, challenges with, well, how do we get the investment to grow? You know, what do I need to do? Is this a full-time part of my business, or is it just a small component? You know, how do I digitize? How do I get onto Twitter? How do I connect with other businesses, given that, you know, I'm, you know, got 4 or 5 people in the business, and, you know, I spend, you know, all of my time running the business. You know, how do I get the capacity to grow and to invest? So that's some of the challenges for destinations and businesses. What that means for individuals, and these are your current and potential customers, is that oftentimes they find it hard to understand, where do I ride? Where do I get a bike? What service providers are there? and whereabouts do I start? And that was one of our key insights that we've gained is oftentimes it's, those destinations that do well make it easier for people to find where the information is, in one place and to get that focused. So what we've really found, I suppose, at the big level is that there is a really key and common focus on destinations that are successful. And what they do at the start is to really focus in on, better quality experiences. So it's about getting people right across the spectrum. So it's the businesses, it's the community, it's the local government to focus on, what are our core, bike experiences that can be had? What do we need to do to invest those? So once communities and destinations start to improve the quality of the experiences, that then leads to more demand because there's word of mouth. People say it's a great place to ride. There are really good things to do. That more demand then leads to local businesses saying, well, there is future for us here and things are working. So let's provide more offerings and provide more experiences for consumers. With that comes more revenue, more investment, more dollars. And that then leads to investment back into improving quality experiences. So the diagram there really just provides just an overview of a virtuous circle that really does allow or provides a framework to understand what destinations are doing and what they're doing well. Okay, Jeff. I think we might move to the next slide.
Okay. So you got the one with the getting more visitors to consider your community?
Yeah.
We might have a little blip in here. Sorry about that. Now and then best practices.
Okay, great. So one of the things that we've collated is a series of best practices around cycle tourism. And what I thought of doing is rather than just giving you just a big long list and talking to that list, I thought I'd talk about those in the context of a case study that we did for a community. So next slide, Jeff. So the community is in Australia, and we do have US clients, but I used to live here in Newcastle, so I know it really well, and I love the area. We've got some pictures there of Newcastle. So it's about 200,000 people. It was in urban decline, large steel manufacturing business pulled out, and it really had to diversify its economy. So it diversified it around a range of areas, education, health, but also cycling and other outdoor recreation areas. So it's by the coast, it's got some reasonable quality infrastructure, but not great. And what we did was to do an assessment of where they are at to in terms of cycle tourism. So with the slides that are coming up, just conscious that this is from a report that we did. So we don't expect everyone to read everything in detail, but I just wanted to really highlight some of the key better practices that they found. So the first is around, before a visitor gets there, those destinations that do well are those that have got a really core focus on the segment that they're trying to attract. So in Newcastle's case, we had a look at it, and the road infrastructure really wasn't good enough because there weren't enough verge lanes, and probably the variety of geography wasn't appropriate. So there probably weren't enough hills. Not really many mountain bike tracks. So for them, the focus was on what are the sightseeing opportunities? How can they create curated rides built around their natural heritage and their local history, particularly the manufacturing base. And you'll see in the picture there are it's by the water, and there are some really interesting buildings that used to have shipping containers, etc. So really around that industrial heritage is a really interesting focus area. In terms of when we looked at the destination, and this is true for most areas, the absolute criticality of wayfinding and signage is really important. Okay, Jeff, you go to the next slide.
Okay.
So the assessment that that we did was broken down into sort of 4 broad areas, and the first area is around the experiences that can be had. So what we did was looked at, as I said before, we looked at those core sectors and looked at which one of those areas were they, did they really have some potential competitive advantage. And as identified before, the sightseeing really was one that is potentially world class, based upon some of the industrial history of the area, the coastline, and also the proximity to rainforests and other areas. Next slide. In terms of bike tourism and industry, what we look at in Newcastle and other destinations is what really makes visitors want to come there, and what really contributes to their experiences. So we identified numerous areas where they could improve, but we've got here there are probably 3 really core areas. So the first is about making sure that they consolidated their information around where to ride. So in their destination, they had a whole range of sources. So they had some old paper-based maps that were in visitor centres and some bike shops. They had 3 or 4 different websites, one from a mountain biking group, one from their local road group. The local council had information, but it really was a mismatch of information. So one of the things that we note in destinations that do this really well is that they've got a single source of truth about where to ride and where to get information. And importantly, that information can be tailored back to the individual's needs. So it shouldn't be up to the individual to have to do the legwork to try and find out whether or not the rides are suitable for their children. That information should be made available quickly to them. And people both within business and within the community should understand how to direct visitors to that information. Wayfinding and signage is obviously critical for all destinations. And finally, what we found was that there really was a lack of tour operators and providers, particularly around that space of guided tours. If their focus is on sightseeing, that they really had the opportunity to build some local businesses in that area. In terms of marketing and promotion, the destinations that do this really well are the ones that tightly link their cycle tourism focus with their broader tourism area. So it shouldn't be seen as something additional for a destination. It's part of that destination's focus on their overall tourism offer to customers. And one of the very simple ways of doing that is to link your curated rides to those other points of interest in your destination, and then to encourage, just through having postcards around cycling, those points of interest. And let's say in Newcastle's case, they have lots of really interesting museums and boardwalks around the area. So it was making sure that those core sites were linked into those curated rides that were then created, so that those other those other points of interest were advertising cycling, and then cycling was advertising those other points of interest. So it's about getting those connections working really well. In terms of development, management and funding, as we talked about before, was around that co-promoting side. One of the constraints that they had was around funding. So we work with them to try and keep more of the money internal. So to help create capabilities for them to promote and to offer up their services to visitors. So instead of paying 20 to 30% to Expedia or Bookings.com or a TripAdvisor, to changed those cost dynamics so that the businesses kept more of their money, and then created a bit of an investment fund so that those local areas could invest into improving the overall quality of the experiences. In terms of management, I'm sure you know this really well, but there are obvious needs to link not just locally but generally regionally, to work with other nearby councils to create an overall branding for a region, and to make sure that you're working collaboratively with other areas so that you can help promote a range of activities, because quite oftentimes cycle tourists don't really care about where the boundary starts or finishes. All they're interested in is an experience. So it's really important to reach out outside of your own destination to start to develop those relationships. So change if we can, Jeff.
Yep, just did.
So great. Okay, so bringing that all together for Newcastle, it's okay to understand what the better practices are, but then it's really about what are the things that we can do quickly and cost effectively to promote tourism in the area. So you can see there, we've got on the top line, we've got some quick wins, and below that we've got some game changers. So for them, it was a pretty simple process of starting with some curated rides around their local history and their architecture, to really engage with their local businesses, show businesses what is the value of cycle tourism, what does it mean to be cyclist friendly, and to show them how to capitalise on those rides that were being created. And that got to the point of actually advertising for the establishment of tour companies, and all of that was extraordinarily low cost. We then backed that up with creating some social media content around itineraries for visiting Newcastle, to give people a view of what does a 3-day cycle tourism trip in Newcastle look like. Then working with local businesses, and we just used a very simple postcard of cycling in Newcastle to help promote all of the experiences, and then to drop those off at key businesses and points of interest, so that as visitors came in, they started to see the opportunities to do more cycling. The other component, which wasn't in here but we have seen work very effectively for many destinations, is before you focus on your website and before you look at other areas, engage with your local community. Make sure that they understand where the local rides are. And one of the key reasons for that is, for many destinations, a major source of tourists are visiting friends and relatives. So if your own community isn't sure of where to ride and what great experiences can have, you really are missing out on some quick wins in that space. We then help them to really focus in on bringing all their information together on one site to make it easy for them, or easy for visitors to find information. Underneath all of that are some game changers. So these are the ones that take a bit of investment. So the ones previously, can be done really inexpensively, and even very small rural councils, a lot of that work can be done, by themselves with just a little bit of guidance. Some of the game changing do require longer term investment. But we find, the key to getting that investment is to do some of the things up the front, or at the top first, so to demonstrate to decision makers, in the council areas and beyond, the value, and demonstrate that progress is being made. So that's a bit of an overview there, and I think now I'm handing back over to Jeff.
Yep. Thank you, Charles. So I think that one of the key things that you've heard in Charles talking about, some of the best practices, are bringing all this information together, making it easy for your customers. And And we skipped over a couple of the slides because I think I was supposed to be talking about them. But there are all these challenges that destinations face, that businesses face, but there's all these challenges that locals face, and that can include: is it safe to ride here? Where do I go? I don't want to get lost. I don't want to get dumped on a big highway that has no paved shoulder, or I don't want to get 50 miles down a road, as I have before, and then come to a section where it dumps me onto a highway with no paved shoulder, and I'm mixing up with cars going 60 miles an hour. So those are the sorts of things that lurk and intimidate visiting cyclists. And so by pulling all this information together, having the curated digitized rides that link with attractions, with places to stay, with where they can get food and services and all the things they need, you're going to be doing a great service to your visitors, as well as to obviously promoting your community and helping it stand out from all the others. And we do have a lot of that on CycleLifeHQ on our actual platform. But that's something we can certainly talk about a little later. The other thing I will mention with the CycleLifeHQ platform is that it is something that can be a standalone or integrated directly into your site. The key thing here for all communities is not only to get the attention and to attract cyclists, it's really to engage them, convert them into actual customers, and then by giving them world-class experiences, how you can bind that relationship, make them your ambassadors to help spread that word of mouth, that what a wonderful time they had cycling in your community, that it's something that they want to come back to and or refer their friends to. So a number of things in looking at how to really establish your own community as a bicycling destination is getting all these different agencies working together. Many of you may be working for a transportation office. Some of you work for conventions and visitor bureaus or destination marketing organizations. Some of you work for nonprofits that are trying to partner and or work with a lot of these local agencies. But the more we can get everyone together around the table and doing this collaboratively, the better. Figure out what are the things that you really want to highlight and showcase, and give your potential visitors, some very clear direction. You don't want to overwhelm folks with a list of, here are the 50 most popular Strava rides in our community, where maybe people are starting from their own home, as opposed to having a curated ride that's starting from your visitor center that's downtown, or your town square, or at a trailhead that you're particularly proud of that also supports local businesses. So think and plan around that. Obviously, there's a fantastic asset that we all have in the League's Bicycle Friendly America program. And so making a plug for Bill and Amelia and team there is, obviously many of you already are bicycle friendly communities, but leveraging that certification, encouraging businesses to apply and get certified as well. Those are all fantastic things, and things you should fully promote and highlight to your prospective guests. As far as, gaining access globally and regionally, try to showcase all this in one site. Make it super simple, leveraging the social media as Charles made reference to. And by, leveraging and boosting your community's brand, then you are going to, ultimately do what a lot of the conventions and visitor centers need to do, which is to get more heads in bed, support those local businesses, create those jobs, and support those local jobs and businesses. In addition, you want to make certain that the information you have is consistent across the platform. I've certainly seen many communities who've been trying to do a great job, but it's like they're sending you in 15 different directions. There's a lack of uniformity in the information that's available. There's a lot of content that isn't there, like, as Charles mentioned, is this a child-friendly ride or not? Is there going to be water at the trailhead? Some communities I've literally seen where they're sending you to where there's a GIS ARC system to try to figure out, as opposed to static PDF maps. These are all things that you want to build upon, but you absolutely want to try to make it as user-friendly and consistent across the board as possible. And I think that this is certainly a point that I make with advocates. I think it's a good point for a lot of city and staff and agencies, is to really look at how you can be an ambassador to work with the local business community and the hospitality partners to help them generate this business, to help them convert new customers, and to really look at the very simple, and there are a lot of very simple and no-cost things or low-cost things that you can do for communities. On the revenue stream, I want to just highlight a couple of things here. I mean, obviously, by creating more economic activity, that is something that overall is going to support the local community, local businesses, the local tax base, and so forth. We do have a marketplace function within CycleLifeHQ, which charges a way lower commission than the sort of normal services of Airbnb, Hotels.com, and or Viator, who will charge anywhere from 20 to 40% or more. So on our marketplace, we're only charging a 10% commission. So instantly more of that staying in the pockets of local business owners. And we also have a profit share model. When I first met Charles a year ago, he talked about this vision of the profit share model, to literally be part of this virtuous cycle of directly benefiting communities, and talking about helping communities build bike trails. And I quickly reminded him how much that can cost, and while I was wishing him success then, realizing that initially, as things scale up, that this is something that could be used to help out with wayfinding signage. That isn't going to cost millions and millions of dollars. It could be used to help supplement marketing efforts that a destination marketing organization or CBB is using to promote its community. It also could be something that is directed towards a nonprofit partner who's doing things to help cultivate. So for instance, this could be something that goes to an advocacy organization or even an Earn a Bike program that's helping highlight some of the great biking opportunities within a community to help engage those visitors and to give them a better experience. I do want to just quickly highlight some of the services that CycleLifeHQ can offer, and these can be customized within any community based on its needs. Obviously, having done a lot of research about what the best practices are there, we can bring a fresh focus to a community with strictly a bicycle travel and tourism lens, and help do an assessment about what's working well, what isn't. Compare that with best practices from around the globe, and really help make those recommendations, as you saw in some of what Charles was sharing, as far as some of the simple and easy things that can be implemented right away, as well as some of the longer term things. And I want to highlight this as a benefit, particularly for our city agency folks and or our advocates, that there's obviously things that all of our communities can do to be better places, to be safer places to bicycle for transportation from getting to point A to point B within a community. When you're also able to leverage the economic development benefits of bicycle travel and tourism, you have another key tool, another great lever, and a whole set of partners you can bring on board. And one of the things I love to highlight, particularly having lived much of my life in communities that depended upon or thrived because of tourism as a whole, is that when we make communities better places for visiting bicyclists and travelers, it's something that the rest of us in a community can enjoy for the remaining 50 weeks out of the year, for those of us who live there. The other thing, of course, that the CycleLifeHQ has is a bicycle travel and tourism platform. And I'm actually going to hop online to sort of show you all a little bit of this in just a moment. But in short, we do have a purpose-built platform that works across all modes, tablets, phones, as well as computers. It does have the one-stop shop actual marketplace and e-commerce solutions built into it, and quite a high level of functionality, which I'll show you momentarily. The other thing that we look to do is to work with destinations and the business community within to help them better understand, particularly the hospitality partners who know how to give good customer service in a general sense, but they don't know the nuances necessarily, the needs that bicycle travelers and tourists have. And so being able to educate them about the importance of secure bicycle parking, or the convenience for a customer to be able to bring their bicycle into their room, having access to tools or pumps, or at least the basic information where those services can be provided. In certain communities, particularly where there's a lot of mountain biking, have the ability, a place for them to be able to rinse off their bike, especially if they're going to be bringing it into their room. These are all very simple things that don't have to cost a whole lot of money. And then finally, we have a whole suite of opportunities to work on the marketing end of things. We've been identified by Google as a high growth business, so there's a lot we can do as far as search engine optimization, as well as working with communities on how to help tell the story through social media. And the final thing I'm just going to mention about with CycleLifeHQ specifically is that this is a platform that all of you are able to use free of charge. It is there. You can upload your information. On the other hand, if you've already got too much on your plate, we can be hired to happily do all that work for you. I really like this sort of middle space, the co-venture, where there's some engagement, some involvement from the community, where they're really providing their local knowledge, the best places to ride, helping advise and give guidance, but that we're leveraging the tools, the best practices, and really insights that CycleLifeHQ has. So we can make it easier on staff and organizations and agencies that already have a lot going on, with a pretty minimal amount of input, but do something that works together. And so I just wanted to highlight that. The other thing I want to highlight as far as resources, many of you may already know, and hopefully we'll see some of you at the Bicycle Tourism Conference. It's coming up next month in St. Petersburg, Florida. We're also going to be doing our first bicycle travel and tourism seminar. We're going to be spending a full day delving into a lot of this information, a lot of our expertise in a much deeper way. We're going to be doing that in Boston the week right after the Bicycle Tourism Conference. So if any of you are in the Northeast or have family that you'd like to visit, or you just need a good excuse to go to Boston, feel free to follow up with me. I can give you additional information, but we are going to be doing a bicycle travel and tourism seminar in Boston, November 14th. And finally, there is the National Bike Summit, which hopefully all of you have on your calendars and plan to come to March 5th through 7th. So we're going to be involved with the Bike Summit again this year, and look forward to sharing some of that. So Bill, I want to just check in with you. Is it okay if I do a quick show and tell on the web, or do you want to go straight into questions at this point?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, do a show and tell.
Okay. So I'm going to, you're going to have to give me 1 second here to open up and try to switch my screen here. So if you all will stick with me for 1 second, I'm going to try to do that. All right. So Bill, are you able to now see the CycleLifeHQ website, Your Next Bike Trip?
Yes, I am.
All right, excellent. So this is the CycleLifeHQ landing page. And as I scroll down here, you can see that there are a number of bicycle destinations in the US as well as Australia. I'm going to go ahead and just pick on the US and show that we do already have over a dozen cities in nearly 10 states around the country. And I'm just going to give you a little sense of the range here. Sorry, was that a question, Charles, or a point?
No, that's fine.
All right. So I'm gonna actually go to a very small community for starters, just to highlight here. So Vernal, Utah you know, relatively small town, not a lot of road riding to do. I mean, there's like a road that goes through town, and mountain biking is the main game in town. So this is going to be a mountain bike heavy page, but this is something that is customized to any and every community that we work with. But we start off right here with a beautiful iconic photo. Like, wow, where is that arch? I want to bike there. I want to check that out. As you scroll down, I'm just going to do a quick scroll through the page as a whole. So you can see we've got 7 rides listed here. Here's an itinerary for how you can spend 4 days mountain biking around Vernal. Right here, we've got the hotels, the local bike shop, the local craft beer and food, as well as an overview map sort of highlighting where trails are, as well as Kyle, the local trail guide, who will happily show you around. So you can see right here on one simple page, we have a ton of information. And within each one of these, quite a bit. So this is sort of the uniform page that CycleLifeHQ has developed for showcasing any and all our rides. You know, we've got wonderful photo galleries with each ride. You can get a good sense of what you're going to get to see on the ride, as well as a nice text description about the ride, you know, hopefully avoiding any surprises and or answering those questions. You can see the video integration right here at the base of the text, and then the trail map, which is integrated directly with Google Maps. And so, you know, not only we can see the loop here, but we can sort of see along the way, like, oh, yeah, there's a little bit of climbing here. You can even see where that is on the map. And then below that, all the key stats that a lot of folks like to know. You know, this is an 8-mile ride. It's got 1,500 feet of climbing. So pretty good, important stuff here. And then the key piece here are the filtering pieces that we've developed in here. So this one is highlighting itself as kid-friendly. This is more of a beginner level trail. You know, I'm obviously going to look at this and see, oh, it's 8 miles with 1,500 feet of climbing. And for my 5-year-old kids, maybe it's not 5-year-old kid-friendly, but when they're going to be 7 or 8, I'm totally confident of their ability to do that. I can see that this is off-road. And very important, I can see, oh, there's toilets there. So, you know, given some of the pictures I've seen of this trail, there's not going to be a lot of shelter for my little girl to duck behind a bush if she needs to go to the bathroom. So knowing that there is a toilet there at the trailhead, or a place, you know, even to change clothes is really important. Or I'm going to be driving there in a car with my family. So knowing that there's car parking is really key. So that gives you a quick insight as far as the level of detail that we go into with each of these rides. I'm going to skip down here to the accommodation and highlight this random town place suites that's there in town. You can see right here, people are able to book right away. There's a little bit of a description, obviously the photo gallery, but also key to our site and unique about our site is that it has those cycling friendly features here. I love this, and I'm going to share with all of you for 2 standpoints. I mean, there's obviously, as a consumer, I can see, all right, if I'm going to be mountain biking, it's really important that I have laundry. They don't have tools there, so, but they do have information about the local bike shop. So pretty basic level of services that they're offering to cyclists, but I get a sense of what they do know. From the other end of it, if I were the manager of this hotel and I was just sort of checking over my listing, I would see all these things that are not checked off. I would see, oh, bike lockup, what's that involve? Hey, hey team, don't we have a storeroom downstairs we're not using that we could convert into a bike room? Or don't we have a hose on the side of the building that we can make accessible and highlight that to our guests? So right away, you can see here some very simple, low cost, no cost things that businesses can do to make themselves more friendly to visiting cyclists. I'm also going to just give you another sense here. While we're talking mountain biking, I'm going to highlight Boulder. This is part of a pilot with the local IMBA chapter and working with the Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance. Because they're only highlighting mountain biking in Boulder, they've broken out to beginner trails, intermediate trails, and advanced trails. So you can see the level of customization that right away they're doing that's a little different than other communities. And if we look at some other communities, I'm actually going to, I'm going to back up here and show one of our earlier destinations, which was in Canberra, Australia. I'm just going to highlight here, for instance, that on their rides, we've got everything from road rides the paved trail rides, the mountain biking that's around. So there's a, you know, this is sort of the more typical community where you're highlighting the whole range of things that you can see, explore, and do. So I think that gives you all a quick sense. Charles, is there anything else I haven't touched on you want to add on real quick there?
No, I think that's great. Thanks, Jeff. You know, let's certainly open it up to questions.
All right. I'm going to just switch it back over to the PowerPoint. And yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in. Or Bill, I don't know if there's another way you want to run that.
I think that that's the best way to ask questions, and if we can open up the mics if need be.
Okay.
I don't see any questions in the chat box, so if folks have questions, please type them into the section over there called under the chat box.
All right, we've got an initial question from Randall asking about cost. You know, I'm going to start with the general. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing for any community in trying to focus on cultivating their community there as a bicycle travel and tourism destination, I mean, it's time, getting everyone together, rallying all that and so forth. So that's usually the biggest thing. I know of communities that have spent tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on trying to develop their pages in a way that has as much information as possible. To answer the cost question for CycleLifeHQ, our typical packages, and again, these are all tweaked and customized based on the interests and needs and services that the communities we're working with request. But we typically are offering packages that range between $5,000 and $20,000 on the upper end for the fully managed, because we are in a earlier phase of our development, if you will. We're offering some discounted prices right now for communities that are signing up with us early in the game here. So I've actually given some proposals to a few communities as low as $3,000. So pretty small amount of dollars for a pretty big bang for the buck.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. You know, around cost. You know, because we are absolutely focused on you know, helping destinations worldwide. What we did was to look at some of the absolute best online resources, and for me, actually, probably the best one globally is in New Zealand. They've really got their act together and got a fully integrated site. Now, that site cost them about $1.5 million to build and to locate. So we looked at their functionality and basically replicated all of it, and then we've added some additional features. But instead of us, you know, charging $1.5 million, you know, we've brought that price point well down. And you know, as Jeff indicated previously, you know, the site that you saw from Vinal in Utah, it was a lot less than most people would expect. It actually cost nothing, and the reason for it was because a dedicated individual from Vinal called Kyle Fuller said he was having real problems with his local council getting them to understand cycle tourism, and he as an individual didn't have money to do it. So could he use our platform to build that site out? Absolutely. So he did that, no cost. That's fine. You know, for other communities that want to get, you know, an assessment and you know, map out rides and get a really good, you know, looking destination page, you know, those figures that Jeff talked about there are you know, the ones that we're looking at, but there's certainly a lot less than a lot of the sort of bespoke builds that are done on web pages.
Great, thank you, Charles. So I see another question here from Susan about what are the typical barriers to developing bicycle tourism information on a central site. Charles, do you want to start talking about that from the tech side of things? I mean, because I can certainly say that the biggest challenge I see for a lot of folks is thinking about the full scope of what cyclists need, and particularly if you don't have people in the community who have dedicated time, energy, and expertise around that, that can be a barrier in and of itself as far as thinking about those needs of cyclists. But can you talk about it quickly from a technological standpoint or other things you've seen, Charles?
Yeah. So if the question's around what are the challenges for local communities who've got their own web page and how does that interact with the service that we provide, what we've created is it's a thing called an embed function, which basically we do the work for the destination and our platform creates rides for the destination. Those rides can live or at least access through a local destination's web page. So a really key point is that what we want to do is promote your destination. We don't want to promote CycleLifeHQ as the one place to go. What we would much rather do is work with you to help fill out and create the content so that when visitors come, to your pages, that they can, access that, and all of that information is there. It's available. It's consistent. In terms of technology challenges, they've all been addressed now in the platform. So it's a really mature product and it's really simple to use. So I think if that was the question about how do we work with other destination pages, just think of us as a content provider that creates or allows you, or we can create the content with you to be exposed through your page. It is all kept in the back end of CycleLife, and the reason for that is that's how we keep the costs down, but more importantly, as we add new functions, and some of the ones that we've added now are like chat boxes, so that when a visitor is looking at one of your rides, they'll have a chat box come up. We can direct that directly to the email or the contact person that you would like. So all of those new functions come on and into your site, but there's no additional cost for you. The figures that we talked about are a one-off cost. There is a very minimal hosting fee each year, which is $500, but that's it. So it's a one-off cost, and then all those new features are simply delivered up to your platform, and if you want to use them, great. And it means that you don't have to pay for those enhancements as more and more developments happen.
Great. So on the next question, we got Bob asking, hi Bob, by the way, I've known Bob for many, many years. Just seeing that the session was recorded, and I did just type back for everyone to see that Bill and the league are the hosts, so they've recorded this. And Bill, will you have this up on a particular site in your website, or where can they?
Yeah, we'll record it. We'll put the recording on our website, and we'll share that link with everyone who signed up for today.
Great. And I may have made a typo, but we will be happy to also share the slide deck with anyone who wants to see this. And I would also just put out the offer that, this obviously is one we customize specifically for this webinar and very general. But if any of you would be interested in a presentation to a group of entities or any particular entity within your community, I'd be more than happy to do that, and we can do that on a one-by-one basis. So feel free to reach out to me if you have someone you would like me to present this to, or others you're bringing to the table. So and then I see Randall said thank you. So I actually want to say thank you not only to all of you for having been here today, but to Bill and the league for having let us share a little bit of our expertise, and also give you a quick insight into the tools of our platform.
Yeah, can I also just reiterate that, Jeff? I think one of the great things that the league's done with its cycle-friendly communities is really up the game and provided some absolute quality information and services to communities, and we see this just as an extension to really help the league's members get some practical steps forward around bicycle tourism. So thanks again, Bill, for you and your organisation's commitment to cycling, across the states. And hopefully, your members find this information useful.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much, and we're very, very excited to be in this partnership. So thanks everybody for coming today. I think that is a wrap, and like I said, we will share this recording out, and we'll be looking for more opportunities to get together like this and share the ways that bicycle travel and tourism can really transform your communities. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bill,
Bill.
is there anything I need to do to not mess up the recording?